Thanks, Charlie.
Good night.
Mr. Younger.
I have tentatively scheduled a date. I discussed it with the chairman today and bring it to the board's attention for our Saturday meeting with Public Works, Police, and Fire Department. January 27th. I don't know how that worked with the rest of the board.
Saturday morning.
Saturday morning.
It's fine with me, but when are we going to get the budgets?
The budgets will be finalized next week, and they should be with you at that point. We've also requested for the school budget. We haven't received it yet. We are following through with that one.
And again, as far as the budgets, last year we received them, Mr. Dow informed me last week, on the 12th of January, so we're on the same schedule we were last year as far as receiving them from the administration.
I know, but the problem with that, Mr. Chairman, is, you know, when you get the budgets on the 12th, we all work.
There's just a couple of weeks to go.
It gives you a couple of weeks, and it's a huge budget, and it's a tough year. Each year's getting a little tougher. I mean, I know last year we kept trying to get them earlier and earlier. We had hoped to have them earlier this year. Unfortunately, there's been a lot going on, but I just don't think it's an excuse to not to be able to get them. Is there any way we can get them by the end of this week?
You have to have my recommendations in there to present to the board, and they're being finalized at this point. So.
And Finance Committee, have they?
They haven't received anything.
They haven't received anything.
They haven't received anything.
And I agree with Mr. Smith. I am taking this very seriously this year, and looking at every particular account, even $100, $200 accounts.
Item, yeah.
All right, so we anticipate being on the same schedule as far as getting our budgets by the end of next week.
Was that 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the morning?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
7:30 if you'd like.
Yes.
He's
Why
up.
don't you bring the donuts?
He's
I'm
up.
up.
He's up.
I get a coupon, you get the donuts.
Yeah.
That's 6:30. DPW, police and fire.
DPW, police and fire. And then the rest of the budgets we usually take care of during regularly scheduled evening sessions. I mean, those are the three biggest ones.
Right.
And the other ones we kind of peck away at over a couple of 2 evenings.
Generally, 2 evenings do it.
2 evenings usually handle it as far as going over the...
And Tom, do you have the breakdown on what the allowable expenditure is this year? Is it?
That's what I'm getting from Mr. Dow.
Okay.
It's generally like you and I discussed. We basically look at a limit, and we try to back into it or below it. Breakdown.
But you don't know what the number is yet?
No.
Excuse me. So 27th sound all right for the members of the board?
Yep. Fine with me.
Mr. Rowe, all set then? Okay.
As long as it doesn't snow that day.
As long as it doesn't snow?
Yeah.
All right, we'll make sure it doesn't snow.
Okay.
Mr. Younger.
Yeah, and second, as the board can see, the meeting is being videotaped, and I discussed with Mr. Carr for, I think Thursday evening was the proposed night for the
The reruns?
reruns of the, so you'll try to make that available also.
Our audience will be happy.
I also have scheduled Mr. Carr to be in for our first meeting in February to discuss the rate increases for the cable.
Would the first week in February not be good, because that's the meeting just prior to the special town meeting, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot of discussion that night.
I can bring him at a later time, but I was just trying to make it as soon as.
No, I
When are the rate
appreciate that.
increases effective? Then we just got a memo.
January 1st or February 1st?
Yeah, but they will not, February 1st, but it will not be until your later bill,
The rate increases for cable TV?
cable TV.
Yeah. They're going up roughly, what, 10%?
February 1st.
February, 10%, I mean, certain items are going up, certain items
Stay the same.
stay the same. But he could not be available for the meeting in January. I asked him for that.
Mr. Vino.
I don't know if I heard you correctly, Mr. Younger. So they will be televising the meetings on Thursday night?
Mr. Carr was trying to get a slot filled for Thursday, yeah. The reruns.
There's not a lot of competition.
Yeah.
Why,
Yeah,
you want to watch it?
I asked Mr. Carr what the problem is. I mean, I was hoping to ask what time it was going to be on, because that's what I've been asked.
Okay.
Yeah.
Seth, do you have any
Do
insight?
you have any idea, Seth?
I can make up the time right now. There isn't any competition on Thursday night.
You're kidding.
So I can put it on at 7, I can put it on at 7:30, so it's the same time as the live meeting. So
Well,
it's
5
just the
o'clock,
time
everybody's
people are
eating.
familiar with.
Oh, no,
They wanna ruin their
I don't know,
appetite.
it's supper.
We're gonna ruin this
You
up.
want to say 8 o'clock? You wanna
I would say 7:30.
7:30?
Yeah,
7:30.
Yeah, 7:30, Seth, that sounds
Sounds
good.
good.
thank you.
They can take the transcript side by side,
Compare.
see how much you covered, Bob.
We're gonna see how good you are, Bob.
Oh. That sounds good.
That's good.
But I brought it upon myself to invite Mr. Carr, because I thought you might like to hear from him regarding the rate increases.
I always love to hear from Mr. Carr.
The,
He's such a good talker, though, he always consoles us.
on the cable, I got a copy of what the rate increases are.
Yeah, we all got one.
We all got one.
You all got one? And the question I have, I think I asked before, what difference does it make? There's nothing we can do about it.
You get the vent.
You get the
It's called information, they're giving it to us.
I know, but I mean, I think, I brought it up
That's the
before,
answer.
I'm not happy about it, but unfortunately, because we signed a multi-year contract, there's nothing we can do about it, so it's,
Mr. Rowe is correct regarding the rates, but generally, I think the board has like to have,
I'd like to have them here so I can tell them what I think, but that's all we can do.
I mean, speaking for myself, I have a different cable company, I just received a notice of increase today also, Cablevision.
Well, we don't have,
Lessons
I
staying
mean,
the same.
it's kind of a captive audience. We can't go out and pick up a different cable company.
That's true, we all have that same,
That's it, we're,
Yeah.
But we can at least use it again as an opportunity to express whatever level of frustration we have with the quality of service or price or delivery of services. And now, you're anticipating, what's the wishes of the board? We can have them in the first, what's our first?
Bring them in and we'll beat them up for 20 minutes.
Well, what we probably could do, Mr. Chairman, is possibly
First.
meet half an hour earlier or something on that particular night. Maybe have it at 7 o'clock.
What's that, the 5th of February?
that's correct.
Mr. Bagan?
Yeah, to address Mr. Rowe's comments, there are towns that have dual cable companies, and maybe we should look into the differences if those rates have gone down. I know we had a presentation scheduled a couple of years ago with RCN, and they've gone into, exactly, it was terrible, but they've gone into, and it was because they were dealing with Boston the same night. Gee, I wonder where you put your eggs. But anyway, there are, I think Peabody might be one of them. I think Boston is another one where they have dual companies handling cable. So, if there is competition, usually competition drives the price down rather than up. Maybe we should look into that.
Hasn't yet.
Or we could
Even
do
in those
like-
communities that have it,
I haven't seen nothing go down either.
It hasn't gone down for RCN. I mean, if you choose the second guy in, the alternative brings you no price change, just quality.
quality, yeah. No, I
I'd like
think different packages, but yeah.
I'd like to see if we can look into that.
If we can have the cable advisory committee, through the administration, contact RCN. They're still RCN?
They are RCN.
They are still RCN. It's confusing these days. Who's who? Phone companies, cable companies.
You mean they're not AT&T
Yeah, right,
yet?
not yet. It's something to look at. And if we just ask them to, maybe there'll be someone available to make a halfway decent presentation.
Well, at that point in time, maybe we'll need to console ourselves more.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know, does anyone concur with Mr. Smith regarding the 7 o'clock earlier
Oh, yeah.
time for...
For what?
Yeah, that's
Just
fine.
have a car ready.
The night that Mr. Carr's coming up, I'm just thinking if we started a half hour earlier,
It's okay with me.
maybe.
Yeah, fine.
Fine with me.
we can
Fine with
talk.
you? Okay.
Not that it'll take a half hour, but
Okay.
get something done.
That's good. Anything else, Mr. Younger?
No, that's fine, Mr. Chairman.
You two gentlemen have, I'm sorry, you were sitting here all night, I didn't know, we're going to old new business.
Are you under new business?
Yeah, we're under old new business, but, is it Giovanni?
Yes, my name is Nicholas DiGiovanni, live up at 346 Havel Street, and I've been a resident of this community for 22 years. My concern is this letter that you may or may not have, I don't know, I have a letter here that I addressed to Mr. Bagan. And the concern is developer working on Sunday. And some of my concerns are not only developer working on Sunday, Christmas Eve, also how the developer actually got a foundation permit to do the work. I have a list here of violations that I consider that should be addressed anyway. Sunday work starting at 7 a.m., December 24th, without a permit from the chief of police. It's my understanding that any development or any construction activities in the community should have some type of a permit on Sunday. I don't know.
I wasn't clear. Mr. DiGiovanni called me Christmas Eve.
Yes, actually, if I could take just a minute, I would like to thank Chairman O'Leary and Mr. Bagan for their prompt return call. Actually, I spoke with Mr. O'Leary on Christmas Eve, and I appreciate that fact. And Mr. Bagan, when he did get the voicemail, he did call me back Christmas morning, in fact, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
But I thought we did have a bylaw in place, and I didn't have them in front of me, that there was some sort of a requirement as far as construction work on Sunday, but, I could have been mistaken. I called the station, they weren't clear on that, they didn't believe that there was, and the chief called me back and he said that it basically noise related.
I think that's what it is. I think ever since they lifted the blue laws, I think anybody can work, I believe, unless there's a noise factor, is right. And I think it's the noise factor that takes precedent now. But I think anybody can work now on Sundays, but I think the hours are 7 to 7.
Well,
I don't know anything
right,
about
as far
it.
as the appropriateness of it, and I think that's what, now that you mention, I think with the blue laws, so whatever we had in place is something.
Because we used to issue,
have.
we used to issue a permit to work on Sundays, and it was issued by the police chief. But it was mostly for emergency type work and necessary work, or,
And that
bridges
all came
falling
under the
down.
blue laws. I think that's all coming back to me. It came under the blue laws, which were on the books at the time, in order to open a business or transact any business that they required, other than certain restricted activity, required an okay of the police chief, I remember from years ago.
The town I'm very familiar with still does issue by the chief of police the work permits for Sundays. Whether they have to, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
So you're looking at me and I don't know the answer now.
well-
I'm not sure if they still have to. I know they still do, but I don't know if they still have to.
Okay, Mr. Rowe?
This question came up when we were talking about the GoPeds or whatever, and the noise level. I believe, my understanding was, and I think, I'm not positive, but I thought I had talked to the building inspector quite a while ago, there really is no restrictions other than noise. And the problem with the noise is you have to be able to go and have an instrument to measure the noise level and say, okay, it is above 20 decibels or whatever, and therefore it has to be, you have to stop and lower that noise.
That was the issue we had over at the Concord Street area, in particular, a couple of years ago, maybe.
Right, and they did measure because of the trucks going in and out, so I
Is there still work still going on?
Well, part of the issue is exactly what's taking place here. Nobody seems to have a real answer. That's really the issue, and I think that this community should adopt some type of bylaw or whatever and have some mandatory stipulation for work on Sundays. There's a state statute which may or may not pertain, and if you phone bank any of the surrounding communities, virtually every community has some stipulation against work on Sunday. There's some protocol, whether it's a written permission from the town manager, written permission from the chief of police, there is a protocol. North Reading seems to be evasive on that issue. That's only the tip of the iceberg here. The real concern for me to be here this evening is the fact that Mr. Tower, the developer, how he even got his foundation permit, so to speak. Because if I can read through this letter, and I'm not sure, Mr. Bagan, did you CC this letter to any of the...
No, unfortunately, you dropped off today,
Mhm.
and I haven't even seen it.
Oh, okay, so you can't...
I was out
okay.
all day.
Well, I'll give a copy to, I'll make sure that a copy gets to the selectmen. But number two, this developer's septic permit expired and was not renewed. The health agent has not signed off on the building permit. Number three, the DEP revoked the wetlands crossing in September for non-compliance, remanded it back to Concom, and the hearing is still ongoing. Number four, special permit issued by the Board of Health for a driveway in excess of 1,000 feet expired on July 17, 2000. The permit was granted for a driveway in a different location, than the existing driveway now that the developer has.